Good evening and welcome to the Greer City Council meeting. I will call and convene that meeting in just a little while, but we have one item of business that we need to attend to before we get to our regularly scheduled meeting. We do have a public hearing scheduled for this evening. Public hearing is notice of public hearing for Greenville County Program Year 2020 Annual Action Plan for the City of Greer. City of Greer participates in the Greenville County Community Development Block Grant Program, which is the CDBG program, and Home Investment Partnership programs, which are funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The Greenville County Redevelopment Authority is in the midst of preparing its annual action plan for the 2020 calendar year, 7/1/2036-30/20. Public hearing, which will be held tonight at Greer City Hall, it gives the community the opportunity to discuss development, housing needs, and activities eligible for funding under the CDBG and home programs as discussed. Public comment will be received and proposals will be invited on the county strategy for the City of Greer. Those funds become typically available later in the year. This year, it's estimated that the city will receive $307,000 in the CDBG funding and about $108,000 in home funding. Estimated at $105,000 in the CDBG program of income and $298,000 in the home program income are also expected to become available through the program year. Comments are invited on past or present housing and community development performance needs and performance. The funds are used to assist low and moderate income persons, prevent or eliminate slum and blight, and to meet urgent community needs where no other funding is available. Home funds are used to increase the supply of decent, safe, sanitary, and affordable housing and lower income persons. Comments can be offered tonight or in written form and sent to the Greenville County Redevelopment Authority, 301 University Ridge, Suite 2500, Greenville, South Carolina, 29601, and addressed to the Executive Director, John Castile. We are glad to have Ima Nawawadu with us this evening. Ms. Nawawadu is Assistant Director for this program and works closely with our program and is here from time to time, and it is our pleasure to welcome you this evening. Thank you, ma'am, for being with us.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, council members. As I said, my name is Ima Nawawadu. I'm the Program Director for Greenville County Redevelopment Authority. I'd like to introduce one of our board members, Mr. James Hamlin, who's here to support me today. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to present the 2020 Annual Action Plan. Okay. The Annual Action Plan, basically it's a proposal that we sent to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, telling them the use of the federal funds that come to the county. As an urban county, we have to continue to provide this report to them. And the fiscal year 2020 starts July 1, 2020 and ends June 30, 2021. And this 2020 Annual Action Plan actually marks the first year of the next 5-year plan. Currently, we're now in the fiscal year 2029, which is really the end of the current 5-year plan. So the new one starts 2020 and the next 2024. And as I talk, I'm going to also talk about the planning process we have going on for the next 5-year strategic plan. The comp plan is really a 5-year strategic plan for the county. And I'll talk about what is the Community Development Block Grant. And I'm going to keep saying CDBG, I'm so used to saying that. So the Community Development Block Grant can be used for a lot of things, from housing to infrastructure to economic development. The basic thing is it must serve low and moderate income families. That's one major criteria. And you can use it for infrastructure, you can use it for public facilities, you can use it for housing, preservation. You can use it to demo properties, you can use it for economic development, job training, must be low and moderate income. Infrastructure, the area could be an area low mod, or the particular area to be served, 51% of the beneficiaries must be low and moderate income. And I'll have a table to show you what we're talking about when we say low and moderate income. The Home Investment Partnership Fund, which will say home, is really housing. The key thing is affordability and availability. It must be affordable, it must be accessible, it must be available. You can use it for new construction, you can use it for rental development, you can use it for owner-occupied rehab, you can use it for down payment assistance, anything. But again, it must be low and moderate. 80% are below, and we look at numbers to see what it means. Emergency Solutions Grant, also ESG, is really targeted for homelessness. This particular fund has helped a lot. I'm going to show you a little bit of statistics of what we achieved the last 5 years using all these funds. The ESG funding, we're able to help partners that address homelessness. The shelter facility or outreach, food they're able to give to them, or day shelters. And one other area since 2012 is actually able to help families that are literally homeless. Our focus on children, families living with their children in the cars. With the ESG funding, we've been able to help people either deposit to their rent, or some first 2-3 months. We have partners or other housing partners who are able to help them as well, or prevent people from being homeless. That's like you're facing eviction, just some issue that's happened. That particular fund is not just specific for City of Greer, it's really for everybody in the county. But the funding for here that we're going to be talking about specifically is for the Community Development Block Grant and the home allocation targeted for City of Greer. I mentioned the consolidated plan, and the purpose is, as an urban county, being that you're over 200,000 people in the county, you have to provide this 5-year plan every year to continue to receive funding from HUD. So you're going to do a 5-year plan on what the needs of the community, and then the resources, basically programs, projects, anything that you need to do, and then identify the 5-year allocation and how you're going to do this. And then each year you come around and say, okay, now this is the first, this year we're going to do A, B, C, D, Y. And in 5 years you give a total implementation of what you've done. And you kind of assess yourself where you are. So that's kind of where we are right now, to see what we did in the last 5 years and what we're going to do in the next 5 years. One major thing to this is it really helps to address housing needs. It helps to address community development needs, infrastructure needs. It helps to address areas, if it's job creation, if that's your focus, we need to see that. And one other area is homelessness. That's something that has been kicking around, not just for families, but for youth as well. How you're going to end homelessness. There are different components of that you have to address. Of course, the housing part. And then it does the making sure people have suitable living condition, and that means, do you have playgrounds? Do you have after-school programs? Do you help Meals on Wheels, people that are, food and nutrition, or migrant workers and things like that? Do you have proper infrastructure improvement? Do you have your roads and sidewalks and things? And particularly for an area that is low and moderate income. And any way you want to be able to revitalize neighborhoods. And I'll show you how we've been able to do Need More, how far we've gone that Need More plan as well. And it gives you opportunity to plan for the next community that you want to talk about. But it's so important that you have citizen participation. It's not enough for GCRA staff or City of Greer staff to say, okay, you've got your foot in the ground, you have your eyes open, you know what's going on, we think you need A, B, C, D, Y. We need to hear what the community needs are. We're going to take into consideration the marketing analysis, how the market trend is, what's going on, what is affordable. In doing this next 5-year plan, we're taking several components into consideration. 2 years ago, the county conducted a housing study. And in that study, 9,500 housing units were needed, affordable housing units needed in the county. That's 2 years ago. And people keep coming. Greenville is really a great place a lot of people have heard about. So how do you address the influx of people? How do you address that those in here are able to have affordable housing? And of course, the demographics, even the homeless study that's been done, the comprehensive plan for the county, the municipal comprehensive plan will also be taken into consideration and put together in this next 5-year strategic plan to HUD. Last month, we did a needs assessment in the city, and it was held in Greer Public Library. We had residents from Sunnyside as well as Needmore talked about all the different needs and things that they want to see. We still have a survey that you can always go to our link in our website and fill survey. Just you can actually prioritize the things that you need. We have questions about transportation. Do you use GreenLink? If you don't use it, what will it take for you to use it? Because everything is tied together: transportation, jobs, and housing. In January, we did kind of an assessment and did a kickoff of what we've done in the last 5 years as we're going to be planning for the next 5 years. We realized that with all the federal funds and the partnerships, we have different partners that have done tax credit projects. GCRA, with all the partners, we're able to provide 890 housing units from rental to homeownership in different places and areas in the county. As you can see, from 547 homeownership units through even down payment assistance and rental units as well. I talked about ESG funding and addressing homelessness. We saw a lot of first-time homeless families. Adults will not say what problem they're facing, but children will. So that we have a good coordinator in the Greenville County Schools that's able to let us know when families are facing homelessness. Our focus is families with children. We really want to make sure that people, children, are placed, have a home, to be able to continue to study. We also face, we're also helping our veterans, and we have other partners that help other areas and other residents as well. Through the public service program, which we fund through CDBG, and we talk about yours, is we're able to help over 107,000 persons through providing free prescription drugs through the Greenville Free Medical Clinic. We have Meals on Wheels. We have different after-school programs and things like that. And these are normally children who not have been able to afford after-school program or summer program without the use of CDBG funds. We did a lot of infrastructure improvement, both the city of Greer and all the 5 participating municipalities, as well as our Ornicorp areas as well. So this is just kind of a snippet of some of the things that we did. One other thing we're taking into consideration, when we did the kickoff, we invited the South Carolina Housing and Finance Agency, and they did a needs assessment of what's going on, housing needs. And I just put out some very interesting things that they told us. Some of our municipalities do now, they're actually right of not having affordable housing. Greer is not one of them, and I'm not going to mention the other cities that they were mentioned. And 1 in 4 South Carolina renters face severe cost burden. For you to face severe cost burden, that means that you're using more than 50% of your gross income, not net. And we're also informed that South Carolina has the highest eviction rate in the nation. Some other issues that I'm going to read, but you can see some of those concerns that were brought to our attention. So having all this is the kind of things we have to take into consideration when we do the next 5-year plan. ensuring that houses are affordable, that the projects that come, housing development that come into play, have opportunity for affordability to families 80% and below, and that people are not paying more than 50% of their gross in housing costs. Let's talk about some of the housing programs that we have. And through this housing program, we're able to help 890. That's not enough. We want to do more through partners, and not just with partners, but even other developers, having that in mind, and as a percentage of your housing unit being affordable. Remember 2 years ago, we had the housing study that said 95 housing units needed, affordable housing units. In 5 years, we did less than 1,000. It takes the developing affordable units is just as expensive as developing any other. You're going to go through the same thing, same cost. But the idea of making it affordable is some way to find some subsidy or through cost or anything, or assistance with infrastructure improvement to make those housing units affordable. So I'll just mention we have unoccupied rehab. We provide up to $25,000 to families. Very low interest rate, like 1 to 3% depending on your income. We provide free down payment assistance so that when you buy your house, we've actually increased it from $5,000 to $10,000, that you can purchase your first home as long as you're lower mark, 80% and below. We've got financed major projects. We've actually approved in the last 2 years 2 tax credit projects for a particular developer to provide. Between the 2 projects will be over 100 units. 60 of the units will be specifically for seniors, another 46 for families. And their target income is 65% and below of the area median income. We want to see more of this. We talk about the income. When we say 80% and below, and this number comes from HUD every year, so this is the correct number we still have, 2019. The area median income for Greenville County, Spartanburg area is a little lower. Greenville County is $71,700. So when we say families of 80% and below, you look at the numbers below. So that means the top line is if you're 50% and below, it's an adjusted to incomes household. And you can see a lot of these are civil service workers, police, fire, municipal workers, teachers. Extremely low is in the middle. So even if somebody's earning $7 an hour, it's not even in the 30%, they are below that. They're barely about $18,000. And that means they cannot barely afford a 1-bedroom. Let's talk about 2, they have families. 80% and below is the lower number, and it's adjusted to size, the household size. So when we say lower moderate income, the perception of the number, this is what the numbers are. This is a lot of people, a lot of us. So now getting back to the funding for 2020, the good news is we actually have the numbers. So this is the non-estimated numbers that we're talking about. The numbers came out really early. So in distribution of the funds, the city of Greer will be getting a total of $307,336 CDBG money. And your program income increases. Program income basically is when we invest the money on things, the rehab on things, and it comes back to you. If we sell a house, it comes back to you as program income. If it's a CDBG, it comes back to you. If it's home, it comes back. Your home program income is really on the increase, especially of the projects that we have going on quick side. So you've got a lot of home program income that easily can be used for additional projects, and that's the goal, to continue to, it's actually exceeding your home grant, which is a great thing. So we will be planning for projects from the quick side to complete quick side. We've actually taken on another layer to merge the home funds with bank funding so that we can complete this project a little faster. It's just the funding increase. And I'll come down to your sub-recipients. We really received a lot of proposals. So Greer Parks and Rec for the youth program proposed $7,000. Staff recommended $7,000. That's the summer program. The senior program proposed $7,200, and we put it out at $2,500 because we virtual reality initiative use is not unlike activities people use, so we'll wait for this to tell us exactly how we can use it for a more eligible activity for the senior program. Creative advancement, 20,000 requests. We proposed 13,600. You always get the proposals we receive from Greer is usually more than the funding that we have available for public services. It's a specific amount you can set aside. Greer Community Ministries proposed $20,000, recommended $15,000. Greer Relief proposed $14,900, and we gave them all $14,900. Most of the things is based on the timing and use of funds, number of persons that you'll be assisting. Community and schools, this is just second year of this program, so they really help mental and physical well-being, addressing scholastic achievements of students and the families as well. It's been a very good program for the children and families. Their focus is Chandler Creek Elementary School. They requested $7,000 and we recommended $7,000. So the total request was $76,100. We recommended $60,000 for the sub-recipients. Then we received 2 funding requests for home. That's the housing development. Nehemiah Corporation is developing houses in homeownership units and need more. This is actually, they wanted additional funding to a project that we had approved because they felt they needed additional gap funding to address that. So we recommended additional $26,000 from the Greenville County Affordable Housing Fund, because we did have that fund that could be used for houses in Greenville County. So we figure that will help them meet their project and their target population to financial services for families earning up to 80% of AMI. Greer Community Outreach will be developing a house rental unit in the Sunnyside community, and proposed $83,000. Total project cost is $141,335. I recommend $64,000. One of the things to look at finding to be in the range of 35 to 45% of your total development costs. So it's not 100%, and you could see, we'll see that you still have enough subsidy and be able to have other funding and organizations' equity as well in the project. So the home funding from Greer is $104,900. However, the $40,000 earlier had been approved. That's already set aside for their project. This is just an additional for Nehemiah Corporation. This is economic development. This is some of the projects that we've done in the community. The facade improvement program, with the funding from Greer, really made it very attractive. A lot of requests came, and it was a very successful project. So that's something we'd like to see going on as well, because to make the business owner feel like they, they kind of feel like the work they have to do is a lot more, but some of the things are CDBG requirement, but at least with the match from the city really helps them feel like it was worth their while. They did a lot of good work. That was really good. And this is actually a combination between the economic development loan and the facade. And one good thing, facade is a grant, and we don't expect you to pay us back. It's a forgivable loan over 5 years. It goes away, 20% is forgiven. But one thing we ask is you create or retain a low or moderate income job. Economic development loans, about $25,000, very low interest, as long as you create a low or moderate income job. This is another facade. The Creekside community is really coming along. At the end of the fiscal year 20 2018, which ended in July. 5 homes were sold there, total in the city of Greer. 3 in the Creekside community, 1 in Sunnyside, and 1 in Midmore. And this does not even include, these are just GCRE projects. We also have projects for Habitat that built about 3 houses in the Sunnyside community. Now, currently this fiscal year, we've already sold 5 houses in Creekside, and 5 houses total. We have 2 others in sales contract. We have 4 under construction. 4 of the units in Creekside have been sold, and 1 in Midmore. We have projects, rental projects going on in the Sunnyside community from Greer Community Outreach. Infrastructure projects and the Spring Street projects have been completed. This is the before and after. This is the partnership project with the Greenville County Legislative Delegation Committee, which basically helped to fund half the project. That's almost a $1.5 million project. So you didn't have to use all your CDBG funds. So I've had years of savings to do that. So with that funding from the county, it really helped to finish that project as well. The Broadsheet Creek location, this is where you're going to have the Kids Planet project. So we'll be funded with the CDBG funds, basically helping the accessibility to the workplace to get to the section for the children living with disability. All CDBG funds. This is just a master plan for the Midmore. You can see that pretty much the infrastructure improvement for the canteens. Pretty much we finished out with GLDCC funding. We did a lot of infill development in the neighborhood, mostly homeownership units. We talked about a Spring Street that's also been completed. So a lot of that. We have Nehemiah Corporation working on that strip of housing units. So the funding that we recommended was one of the other housing units they're going to be building. The residents still need the Mountain View area to be improved, so that's something we're going to be looking at. But at the same time, too, as we begin to discuss the Sunnyside community. So this is an area, in order to go further in detail, we've got things going on. Habitat have built some houses in there. Greer Community Ministry is building some rental housing. We're actually in discussion with a partner to build at least about 42 units, most likely in that area. So, but we're going to go through some kind of revitalization planning for that, to look at areas for sidewalk, infrastructure improvement, and things like that. And most likely will be our focus for the next 5 years, as well as we do other infill development in the rest of the community. So this in a nutshell, the annual action plan allocation and our planning process for the next 5-year plan. Thank you.
We thank you for joining us. Council, questions of Ms. Abawadu in regards to her presentation, either specifically to the CDBG funds or to the home funds in the one?
Can you go back to the prior slide where you had the same sign? That where you see the Bidden Street and the Mount Street.
At the top left corner.
Yeah. And Mills Avenue.
Okay.
That's Greentown.
Okay, that's Greentown.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's one thing we're going to go through with the neighborhood.
I mean, because if you go across, it says that ain't Greentown.
Exactly. So this is a whole area that our understanding. We want, one of the things we're going to work with the neighborhood, we have 1 or 2 of the leaders, we're going, putting them through the leadership training, but we're going to sit down for them to decide their neighborhood boundaries.
Yeah, but those boundaries are already set because Bidden and
It's the Green.
And Mills Avenue, those are green town.
Green
Yeah, if
town,
you lump
okay.
that in with Sunshine, we're gonna have water.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. This is really good. You see, and that's why we need the participation of the neighbors to tell us exactly
Yeah,
where.
I can say that again. You
I
didn't
appreciate that.
You said, another one day we'll get together another.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah,
understand it perfectly. So that is the thing, we told them we have to define the neighborhood boundaries,
Yeah.
but you've already told me that, so
Okay.
that's something we really have. The green areas are sections in the area that is not in the city limits of Greer, so we would not be including those areas. We'll only focus on city area limits of Greer.
On the sub-recipient applications, was the ones that you approved, was that the only ones that applied? Okay. And I guess this is kind of a more, of a council discussion, but I think one of the things that lies ahead of us in our city is housing, the cost to own a home or to rent a property is on a trajectory like we've never seen before. And this is only going to be what I've got in my mind. It's may help maybe one generation, but if instead of putting all of our funds in a neighborhood, if we sought out folks that were in maybe homes that needed to be upgraded, but they didn't, I don't know, so they're not priced out of their own neighborhood, but they were, their houses, although they may be smaller, they're just as nice and attractive to that community as anything else that would be revitalized or torn down and rebuilt. Because the example of that, and this happened actually before all this started taking place, but on Trade Street, below Cannons, we used funds to construct new housing down there, and it blends well. I mean, it was a great thing that I don't guess we realized how much it was going to blend with everything that was going on now down there.
Yeah.
It might be something we want to look at.
And that's something that's happening, like you said, we do infill development, so when we get all the money, it's not going to be everything in the Sunnyside community. We look for properties that could be things that we call acquisition, rehab, resale, or acquisition and more reconstruction. So any house we have in infill would make sure it blends with the community, so we do have that.
I don't want to see happen to any community is if we took one area, no matter where it was, how big it was, and you built the same kind of home, same value, then it kind of makes that area the same. And to me, what we would want to do is we're trying to raise everybody.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, what they've done, though, that hasn't happened, because each one knows that their bill's been different and even the price range is different. And what affordable housing, what people once thought of as being affordable housing is $100,000 that's considered affordable housing.
No, I agree.
And
but I don't think you want to keep everybody where they are. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, but see, some people do want to stay where they are because it's a sense of identity of a particular neighborhood, just like where I came from. When in the day, and it's changing now too, but in the day, Nemore was a working class community, and it too is evolved because where you once had houses that was 40, 50,000 miles, those days are gone. They ain't coming back. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing But what you're saying about the rent too, those rents of $200-300, that's gone too, and it ain't coming back. So, and it's always better in the neighborhoods when you do have new housing development because it's strengthening. And we see the same thing happening in Sunnyside now because somebody has seen, that there's value.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I think we need a mix.
Yeah.
A mix, that not just one.
Yeah, that's true.
And I guess that's where discussion.
And this is the discussion that we can have, for the last 20 years, we've done this a couple of different ways over time. And what we have found, I think from experience, has been that accumulating these funds over a period of time and then applying them to a particular area or group of homes has had a much higher impact on the community than trying a broader shotgun approach. And that's not to say that we can't do the homes that are outside of that area, but if you look at what's taking place in the Needmore community, what happened years ago in the Victor community and in some other places where we've been able to go in and identify work that needed to be done beyond the housing piece of it and do some infrastructure work and improve some roads and that sort of thing. We've had really good success leveraging that with not only the building but it's been done on Greenville County redevelopment, but also it typically brings that private investment along with it as well too, and we're seeing that right now in the Needmore area. So certainly good for discussion. Others?
I did have one quick question about the subsidy. I think you were saying, is it 30 to 40% that you're subsidizing the houses? So, like Creekside, for instance, is there a builder that just builds the homes and they give you a turnkey price for them, and then someone shows up to buy, and then you give a line item in their closing for a 30% rebate, or how does that work?
The Creekside community actually is a project that GCRA is directly developing. This used to be a community that were abandoned trailer homes that we put new roads and all that, subdivided it, had some senior housing in the center with United Housing Connections, and then piecemeal been building the housing units with home funds. So we don't have builders that will come in there to say, okay, want to build this, and then you turnkey to do that. We actually have been building all of it with home funds and keeping that units. And this is spot mark, so their income is actually a little lower than the number that I showed you. So making sure that houses families are earning the 80% and below of those units. And because with the home funds, we're able to actually further reduce it, because the surrounding houses in the area is about 170, and we've been keeping those units 126, 100, which it's hard to find. So we've been putting a lot of subsidy in those actually. The ones that talked about it, 35 and 45, were the developers themselves. When they come in, what we do is like that financing for their projects. They have a site and everything. They give us a proposal with a total development budget and uses and sources. The rentals would tell us how it performs. The performer will show what income range and how that's going to be. So having that subsidy was going to cost them 180, and a subsidy going over 60, or part of it being a loan to pay back and some of it being like direct subsidy. That reduces their cost, so they're able to sell that to maybe a total development cost of 180, but they're actually selling at maybe 130. So that buyer has that unit for that, and then you transfer and make sure it's deed restricted, that you don't turn around and flip the house. So it depends on the amount of subsidy that you put that will show the affordability of 5 years or 10 years or 20, depending on the amount of home subsidy that's added to that, to make you ensure that you're there in that. And then the ones that we provide down payment assistance between $5,000 or $10,000, we still have subsidy. And those are houses that people just purchase through a mortgage company, find a mortgage company that will finance them. We do this through a partner called Community Works Carolina. So and they work towards exactly how much that individual need to purchase the house. Could be $5,000 gap, the down payment assistance and all of that. We have a 5-year subsidy in that, so you have to be in that house in that 5 years. If you choose to leave or sell the house, then that funding is recaptured back. Percentage based on the number of years that you have is prorated percentage reduced, and then it comes back for somebody else to use. I don't know if that answers you.
Thank you. Do you have rental units on Creekside?
Quickside. Is there?
Do they have any rental units?
No, they're all home ownership.
all
The
home
rental
ownership.
units are senior housing that is built, about 36 senior housing that is built by United Housing Connections.
That's in Creekside though?
That's in Quickside.
But it's run by somebody else?
Yes, by another partner.
Okay.
Others? Thank you. We appreciate the presentation. We
Thank you.
look forward as you develop that plan to being a part of that. This was a public hearing. This was notice of a public hearing for the Greenville County Program Year 2020 Annual Action Plan by the City of Greer. Is there anyone here this evening that would wish to speak in regards to the Greenville County Program Year 2020 Annual Action Plan? By show of hand. I'll ask a second time, is there anyone here this evening that would like to make a comment in regards to the Greenville County Program Year 2020 Action Plan? By show of hand. I'll ask a third and final time if anyone is here this evening to offer comment in regards to the public hearing for the Greenville County Program Year 2020 Annual Action Plan. By show of hand. If you would like to comment at a later date, you can contact John Castile, Executive Director, Greenville County Redevelopment Authority, 301 University Ridge, Suite 2500, Greenville, South Carolina, 29601. Having determined that no one this evening came to speak in regards to the plan, I call the public hearing to a close. Now then, having called the public hearing to a close, we will move to call order to our regular business meeting. This is a called and convened, regularly scheduled Greer City Council meeting called this evening, March the 10th, 2020. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask Councilmember Jay Arrowwood if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation for council.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this group of folks that sit at this table that are devoted servants of you. Lord, I thank you that you have blessed us with so many opportunities and challenges. And I thank you, Lord, that this council is always meeting those challenges and using those opportunities to help all of our citizens. I ask, Lord, that as we go forward in the meeting and conduct the business of your city, pray that you will give us the wisdom and the guidance that we need to make choices that are pleasing in your sight. In Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen.
Council, this is Black History Month, and the goal of the City of Greer is to recognize Black History Month in a number of different ways. One of the ways that we do that is an essay contest. In that essay contest, we try and highlight the contributions of African American men and women who have made history in the United States. We ask that students write an essay about those that have achieved significance in terms of the history of the United States and allow us to celebrate and honor them as American heroes. We had about 50 participants in the high school and middle school program this year and have awarded some of those folks with an honor in terms of both high school and middle school. Earlier this evening we checked and we didn't have anybody that was here to receive their award tonight. Is there anyone here that has come in regards to the Black History Essay Month contest? Well, we certainly want to recognize them for their efforts, and so in the high school division, third place went to Haley Bobo from Riverside High School. She wrote an essay about Ella Baker. Second place went to Parker Sloan from Riverside High School, who wrote an essay about Neil deGrasse Tyson. And first place went to Katja Gross from Riverside High School, who wrote an essay about Alvin Ailey. In the middle school division, second place went to Presley Hart, who wrote an essay about Jackie Robinson, and first place went to Mason Scroggs. Mason wrote an essay about Emmett Till. We want to congratulate those folks, thank them for participating, and we will be sure that they get their recognition in whatever form that is going to be, and hope that they will enjoy it. Public forum is a time that we set aside in our meeting for citizens of the city to come before the City Council with items that are pertinent to the agenda. We welcome you this evening and thank you for your participation in that regard. We have appears to be 5 people that have offered to participate in the public forum this evening. The way that we do our public forum is to allow you to come to the podium and present your petition or present your information to council. We do that without question and answer, so we look forward to hearing your comments. We do ask that you be mindful of the others that wish to speak tonight. It doesn't appear that with more than 5 people to speak that it will be necessary to enforce a time limit. If you will at least be mindful that there are other people that would like to speak, and that if there are issues that have already been covered, you may want to skip over those as well too. But if you would, as I call your name, as you get to the podium, if you will give us information in regards to your name and address, it helps us for the record. So this evening, the first one that would like to appear this evening is Mr. Darrell Rishforth. So Mr. Rishforth, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Darrell Rishforth. I live at 306 Medford Drive. I would like to address the proposal 7-2020 and the apartment complex that they want to build there. I'm firmly opposed to this rezoning, and for this reason. The traffic on Gibbs Shoal Road is such that the accident rate, the death rate, and the traffic itself is far too much as it stands today. There are semi-tractor trailers, 80,000-pound tractor trailers, going across West Phillips Road and Gibbs Shoal Road, going 30 miles an hour. At the same time, automobiles going 50, 60 miles an hour, trying to negotiate the S-curves. This is not a good thing. There is very little traffic control there. I don't know if Greer City Police, I know, are strapped to patrol, but it's a problem, and roads are just not sufficient for 252 apartments. In fact, it's my belief there should be a moratorium on building permits in Greenville County, in Greer, until there's enough planning made and improvements to the roads and infrastructure. So it's my hope that you will deny the zoning request from industrial to BRD. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker this evening is Mr. Charlie Runyon. The floor is yours, sir.
Hello, everyone. Charlie Runyon, 1940 Gibbs Shoals Road. And I'm just going to make a statement about the zoning. I appreciate everyone's concern over the changes coming to Gibbs Shoals Road. And I want everyone to know that no one is more passionate about what happens to Lazy R Farm than me. My family has owned this property for over 50 years. It was 1,000 acres then when my dad bought it. I've lived in the house for 35 years. There's only 6 years of my life that I haven't lived in that house. Obviously, this area has changed dramatically while my family has been there. I would like to share the intent of the remaining 100 acres known as Lazy R Farm. My family and I have plans to stay on the property for the next 20 years. Using a small portion of the property at its highest and best use will provide us the finances to conserve the rest of the property. Without the cash flow from the development, it will be very difficult for my family to continue covering the financial burden a estate demands. I am so excited to provide this project for the community. Not only will it be a beautiful building. I mean, Russ doesn't do a project that's not amazing. I mean, just look at his past projects. And this building will have unbelievable views of horse pastures. The sunsets will be amazing. I mean, right now there's 20 households that look over the pastures known as Lazy R Farm. This will provide 250 more households to be able to enjoy those views within their households. I believe this project provides a win-win for me and the community, and I appreciate everybody listening.
Thank you, sir. Matt Cordone.
Good evening, Matt Cardone, 1 Garber Court, Greer, South Carolina. It's in the Riverwood Farm subdivision. I'm actually acting HOA president. Been the president for a number of years. When we first found out about the zoning request change, there's a lot of chatter in our neighborhood. There's a lot of chatter across all the neighborhoods up and down Dillard, Gibbs Shoals, Seward, and not necessarily opposed to growth, not necessarily opposed to what Mr. Runyon wants to do on this property. We had conversations in our neighborhood with a number of people about crime, safety, access to police, fire, medical, the number of students that potentially could come from that location, along with the property that's being developed over here at Suber and Highway 14 and Gibbs, which is 300-400 houses across the street from the elementary school. And we talked about a number of different things, but at the end of the day, it came down to what we think is road safety. Wrote some notes here. The accident rate is very high on Gibbs Shoals, as Mr. Richworth mentioned. The Runyon Farm fence, unfortunately, Charlie is breached on a regular basis with accidents and cars going through it. The road study that was done by the professional engineers hired by the developers for this project clearly stated that the roads were rated an F, which is, I can't disagree with that because they look like they're an F, and based on the S-curves that are over there on Gibbs Shoals and then what you have to go through on the road that Greer owns, which is West Phillips down to the bridge, it's pretty dilapidated. It was unclear at the planning meeting how far the study of the traffic went. It sounded like it didn't go very far around the white picket fence of the farm, but it certainly did not go back all the way to Diller Road and Suber Road and all the other roads up and down Gibbs Shoals. We have had 3 deaths in the last few years on that road, Gibbs Shoals Road. 1 death since the planning meeting last month was in front of the running house, which is very unfortunate. It was a resident of Greer. Roads in that area, amazingly, are owned by the state, owned by the city of Greer, and owned by the county, which is frustrating when you have to deal with 3 different municipalities and entities. It's extremely difficult to take a left out of our neighborhood, Railroad Farms. It's extremely difficult to take a left turn at Dillard and Gibbs Shoals. Dillard already has over 2,000 trips per day. It's very difficult to take left turns out of the other neighborhoods in that area. We don't have a stoplight at Dillard and Gibbs Shoals. We probably need one. It's very difficult to imagine how many more cars are going to be coming up and down that road when the planned development takes place. 300-400 houses over there across the street from the elementary school, in between 14, Suber, and Gibbs. And studies suggest that on average there's about 5.7, I'll round that to 6 trips per unit. There's 252 units contemplated on average at an apartment complex. It's pretty simple math. That's 1,200 in and outs of that area of Gibbs Shoals on top of what's going to happen down there at Suber Road. That's a lot of vehicles that are going to enter that neck of the woods, and I'm not so sure that those roads that are already rated enough can handle that. It's our understanding that we can expect, from studies that I've looked at, about a half a trip from the police department per unit, so that'd probably be about 125 to 126 per day, per year out there. And we can expect about 30 students per 100 units per some studies that we've looked at. So if there's 250 units, we're expecting 75 or more students to go into our already overcrowded schools in the area. I mentioned this at the Planning Commission meeting that we should partner on this project. Again, I'm not opposed to the project per se, but I am really concerned about road safety for all the neighbors up and down Suber and Dillon Road. Please work with us. Please partner with us. I've had discussions with Congressman Bobby Cox, who is a neighbor in Riverwood Farms. He and Senator Talley from Spartanburg are well aware of the poor road issues, and they would like to see if there's some time to partner on this before you make the decision to change the zoning and approve an apartment complex there. To see if we can get these roads straightened out. The traffic is too high right now, and obviously we talked about the safety issues, and I really appreciate your time for letting me speak tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Alexandra Bird.
Good evening. My husband and I have been Greer residents since 2006, and our property is along Gibbs Shoals Road. We attended the Planning Commission meeting in February with many residents from our neighborhood, Riverwood Farm, and other neighborhoods in the area to voice our concerns regarding the proposed rezoning of a parcel on Gibbs Shoals Road from industrial to DRD. And I'm sorry I didn't state my address. Alexandra Bird, 10 Gladstone Way, Greer. Okay, little nervous. We are keenly aware of the poor state of Gibbs Shoals Road, as well as the dangers due to speeding vehicles night and day on this road. My bedroom is actually on Gibbs Shoals Road. In the almost 14 years we've lived in our house, we've seen a steady but dramatic increase in traffic. Even though more than 25 Greer citizens spoke at the planning meeting in opposition to the proposed rezoning, the Planning Commission voted 4-1 to approve the rezoning. We wanted to again express our opinion to you as City Council members that Gibbs Shoals Road cannot support the apartment complex that is being proposed. Vehicles travel at a high rate of speed, regularly driving 10 to 20 miles per hour over the speed limit of 40 miles per hour, along a very narrow 2-lane road with no shoulder and a hazardous S-curve. There are frequent accidents that have resulted in fatalities, as recently as a death on February 22nd. For the safety of our family, friends, neighbors, and other citizens, it is in jeopardy if several hundred more cars are added to this road. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Our final speaker this evening is Mark Yost.
I'm Mark Yost. I live at 204 Trask Court in Riverwood Farm. And as those that have spoke before me have stated, I am opposed to the apartments or rezoning that area due to the safety issue. I've lived backed up to the farm, could run the farm there for almost 10 years now, and we witnessed many wrecks, of which, I've been on the scene. And I can tell you, that's a pretty sobering, waking up call to be laying there in the bed and hear the screeching of tires and a rolling of a vehicle and then a bump. That road, I'm sure, was designed back in the days when it was really a farm. I mean, you have a farm now, but, when you had very little traffic, the way it winds across and there was the shoals and it came around the big turn there. But to me, with what we're faced with now with the communities in there, it doesn't make sense to continue to add to the, unsafe conditions without doing something to straighten the road. I mean, if DOT were to look at this, any sort of planner with DOT were to look at this, they would look at and say, as it comes across the bridge at the bottom of the hill over Ciry River, you would come up the hill there the way they're proposing now. And by the way, that bridge will be closed for a year or longer, to be replaced soon. But it would make sense to come straight across that field, taking the big turn out of there before anything, just for existing property that's there, and homeowners. Like everybody said, the people come around that road in, excessive speeds, and a lot of times, I just have to take what shoulder is there to get out of the way. So my concern is, the rezoning of the property, should be held up until which time, DOT has sufficient time to look at that, take a hard look at that, to look at the safety issues involved. We have grandchildren, there are children in our neighborhood that sometimes get out near the road, and it's, it's pretty scary at times. It's scary at times to pull out of our subdivision into Gibbs Shoals due to the traffic coming over the hill there, much more than 40 miles per hour as we turn into the, Gibbs Shoals Road to exit. So I think something needs to be looked at there before we go any further with, planning, any further homes or apartments in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Council, you have the minutes of the council meeting held February the 25th, 2020. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Dawkins?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, this evening we've got two presentations. We have got Kirsten Presley, who is our court administrator, here tonight to bring us her monthly activity update report. And following that, Steve Grant, our city engineer, will present his annual report for the department. Ms. Presley, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's my privilege, as always, to come before you to provide you with a brief snapshot of the court activity and financials. The majority of this information will be contained in my February monthly report, but I've added a little extra in with it tonight. The caseload for February 2020 involves 687 cases filed by police officers. Those are on uniform traffic tickets and arrest warrants. There have been 510 cases that have been processed and disposed within the court. From February 2019 to February 2020, the cases filed increased by 81%, and the cases disposed decreased by 4%. That is to be expected. Each case requires anywhere from a month forward to process through the court system, so the next coming months will reflect the 81% increase that we have had. 136 arrest warrants were issued. 140 arraignments or bond hearings were held. The 140 defendants had a total of 225 charges amongst them. 14 bench warrants were issued, 11 were served or disposed, and 6 search warrants were issued at the request of the police who would have been working on an active case and needed information. Financials include a total collected of $51,991.76. The total collected was it decreased by 4% from the prior year. The total revenue for the city was $16,664.29. and this is a decrease of 8% from the previous year. We do feel that this decrease in money and revenue is a direct result of the new procedures that we have to follow. Those require each case a longer amount of time to process through court, which makes it a little longer and a little more difficult to collect the fines and fees. February 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th were traffic court days. We had general sessions preliminary hearings for Greenville County on February the 7th. Domestic violence court was held on February the 13th. This was a court that we had originally partnered with the State Attorney General's office on. We no longer have that partnership. We have moved on to a partnership with Greenville County Solicitor's Office. And at this point, that partnership is working well and moving forward like we had envisioned that court. There were several of us who attended South Carolina gun law training. This particular training includes several elements that we are required to get every year, so I tried to get as many of the judges involved in this particular training. And of course, we go to the amount required plus. We go to as much training as we can possibly get to. One of the highlights, though, is we got a new AV system. This is the first update since we moved into that building. So it's pretty amazing, and we now see the difference that 10, 12 years can make in technology. It's completely different than what we were working with before. It is much, much nicer, and of course Judge Mims loves new technology, so he's quite happy. What's up here now is a picture of a new class through the Municipal Association. The affiliate for the Municipal Court Administration Association, which I've been a part of since 2006 in various capacities. Right now, I'm the second vice president. We have for years talked about a uniform training for the new clerks that come into their positions, oftentimes they have no training and no background in criminal justice or court. We finally paired with the clerk of court for the city of Greenville, and we established a new training called Clerk 101 School. The inaugural class was what is pictured up here. There were 30 clerks that were there, and our intent is to start with the ticket coming into the door of the into the court from the police department, and then what to do in every situation that we can possibly cover for a clerk. There's a lot involved in this. Each session is 2 days. We finished the first session on February the 20th. We have another session in June and another one in October. Once we get through October, we'll assess to see if we need to add more each year, and we'll continue to do these classes, which cover more material than any training we've ever been given. This has been needed for as long as I've been here. There is no formal training or certification for any clerks of court in South Carolina. So this will provide the best process, procedures, the best practice that they can have in their court to bring some uniformity to it. In conjunction with this, we are also writing a completely comprehensive training manual for all clerks in the state. The hope with this is that in the end, we'll be able to have certified clerks of court that all know how to handle each situation that comes through. So this has been a huge, huge undertaking, and so far has been very, very successful. Expungements. All I'll say is there's 517 so far this year, which is a 30% increase from last year, and we had already experienced a 37% increase the year prior. We'll just keep moving. There's, maybe 300 more on my desk right now, so we'll get through those, and we'll continue to train. That's huge in our department. We go to as much training, even though there's no certification for the clerks. I still require them to go through a fair amount of training if they're going to have anything to do with victims, defendants, defense attorneys, customers, citizens. I require customer service training, domestic violence training, ethics training, anything else that I can find that can partly benefit them and everyone else who comes in the door. I require they take. I also follow pending legislation every year. There are 5 bills of interest right now. Of course, expungements is one of them, to add another section for us and another timeline. I do expect that one to pass. There are a couple other ones that deal with timelines to SLED and jail time and things like that, which will impact us, but not greatly. And then there's a Senate Bill 639, which is a Sentencing Reform Act. It is the upgrade from the Omnibus Act of 2010. That law was probably 50 pages long. This one will be probably very similar. It changes sentences in municipal court, it changes sentences in magistrate court, it can change sentences in general sessions. It will take away mandatory minimums. It will allow prisoners to request amended sentences after they've served 15 years, regardless as to how many years that they received initially. It will take away weight presumptions for drug charges. What that does is it determines whether by law it is considered an amount for personal use or an amount that is possession with intent to distribute. Taking those weight presumptions off will take off the possession with intent to distribute unless there's other factors that can't be based solely on weight. That will change how the warrants are handled and how the warrant requests come in, and it will change more on the police department side, but that will drastically change how we issue warrants, and the training will need to get back to that point. It will also include, for restitution that is owed to a victim, it requires the court take into consideration the ability to pay on the side of the defendant. So right now, whereas a victim can be made whole through restitution, that might not necessarily be the case, because you have to take into account the ability to pay for the person who's been convicted. That's also included in that bill. So we're watching this closely. I expect some will go through, some will probably lag another year or so, but I will stay up to date on those and let you know. And last but not least, this is my new employee, Judy Lorman. She's our new jury trial coordinator. That's the position that you guys approved for me for this budget year. I cannot thank you enough. She has already been an amazing asset. She's learned quickly. She's excited to be a part of our team, and I couldn't do that without you. So I really, really thank you. She was very needed in our department. She will be helping with expungements. So once I rearrange some duties, so we're really happy to have her. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
Counsel?
What's driving the need to change the laws as far as the weight goes?
That's the first I had seen of it. Nobody has talked about that. I found that by reading through that very long legislation. It was kind of tucked in there. That particular bill has a lot of things that aren't technically sentencing reform kind of tucked in there. So it doesn't, that would not be something I would consider sentencing reform because it has nothing to do with the sentence. There's a lot in that bill.
I know you've done an extremely good job of streamlining the expungement process, but it's still weighty. Have we ever attempted to calculate what this is costing us in terms of time and effort and hours and that sort of thing? If we're doing 500 plus now and looking at, increases, steady increases from that,
I haven't calculated. I'm almost afraid to calculate it because they take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour plus per expungement order. So they pass through 4 different employees. There's that manpower. There's the unbelievable amount of paper and ink that we go through. Each order ends up going to about 8 different places. So postage is also crazy high on those. It's extremely time consuming. There are also documents that we have to keep forever. So we have to have them under lock and key, and we have to have room to keep all of those. And those cabinets just keep coming in where we can keep them locked away from, they have to be locked away from the other employees as well. I have the only keys for them. So I can calculate it, but I'm not real sure it would be anything we want to look at.
You got plenty on your plate without calculating, so don't worry about that,
Well, so the law prevents us from, you talked about all the hard copies. We can't save it electronically or send things out electronically.
We cannot send anything out electronically. That all has to be certified. So I have to certify and sign every copy that goes out. That might be why I had to have hand surgery. So they all have to go. They cannot be electronic. There is some potential of us moving to a scanned copy of them, which would help us with the storage part. But it won't help with what we send out. Those go to the defendant, the defense attorney, each jail they've been a part of, which here it could be 3. It's Greer, it could be that they were in Greenville for a time, they could be in Spartanburg for a time. So it has to go to SLED, it has to go to the DMV, it has to go to the clerk of court, whichever county the charges have been through. So all of those are required to be certified copies.
Now, is the scanning, is that regulated by the state, or is that something that we just need technology?
We would have to go through the Department of Archives, and that is a session actually that we're going to be instructing on in one of our upcoming Clerks 101 session, is we'll have all of that information so that we can look at that as an option for everyone.
So you said keep it forever?
Yes.
Forever?
Yes. Expungements and court dockets can never be destroyed. Everything else has a retention schedule of 5, 10, or 15 years. Except for those.
I just want to say I appreciate your initiative on the training.
Oh, thank you.
I think that's excellent. I'm sure that's something everybody
I wish I had had it.
Yeah.
Many years ago, many years ago. But it's very helpful. We've gotten great reviews. Usually those surveys are kind of a mixed bag, but the only complaint was about the fruit they were served.
Please give our regards to the judge and our thanks to your staff for what y'all do over there. It's an area that we grossly underestimate what y'all are involved in, and we do thank you for the effort that you put in to keep us in compliance and at the forefront of training. And so thank you not only for your efforts, but the staff's efforts as well, and thank the judge for what he does for us.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grant, do you want to try and top that?
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and I'll do my best to top that. Appreciate the opportunity to present this report for the Public Services Department. I would like to recognize in the audience tonight Robert Brew, our Assistant City Engineer, and Ricky Bidwell, our Street Superintendent, and Dan Fowler, our Building Maintenance Superintendent, and recognize their daily critical role in our department, and also for helping put parts of this presentation together. Our department has 5 divisions now, each contributing uniquely to the city vision statement of delivering efficient and effective services to the city. And as you know, engineering and stormwater moved from the Building Development Standards Department over to Public Services back in August. And I will say that this has been a good move for me, and I look forward to the new challenges it brings. I'm going to review the highlights of each one of these divisions, starting with engineering and stormwater. This division is charged with managing and overseeing the municipal paving program, stormwater program, and city infrastructure projects. Highlighting our 2019 paving program, we repaved approximately 2.2 miles in 2019, and we partner with both counties to fund and administer these paving programs. And you can see there one of the streets listed, the cost in the picture, one of the streets that got paved. A couple more photos from Harris Drive and North Avenue. We did also include this past year 5 lane miles of crack sealing, all of it in subdivisions. Moving over to the stormwater program, Robert's going to come up and share with you a little bit about stormwater.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Like Steve said, quick overview of our stormwater program. So the program exists to protect our waterways from stormwater pollutants generated by construction sites or illicit discharges from commercial or industrial sites. And the program consists of 6 minimum control measures defined in our small municipal separate storm sewer system, which is our MS4 program. So most of our time is spent on item number 4 here, which is construction site runoff control. This is where we spend the majority of our time with plan reviews and site inspections. In the coming year, we're also planning to start the South Carolina Adopt a Stream program in the city, and that's going to help us address items number 1 and 2, which is public education and outreach and public participation and involvement. Our plan review process, the main goals there are to ensure during construction, discharges and stormwater runoffs controlled, and post-construction runoff meets our water quality and quantity requirements in order to protect downstream and adjacent properties and waterways. So activity-wise, in our plan reviews, we got 41 total projects submitted in 2019. This graph shows the number of projects submitted the past 8 years. Currently, we're holding steady around that 40 plus mark, which is about a new project submitted every 9 days or so. And we did a total of 125 stormwater plan reviews in 2019. In general, each project takes about 2 or 3 reviews before being approved. And eventually, these plan reviews turn into active construction sites. And these line graphs here indicate our steady growth from 2016. We're currently around 70, 72, I think, active projects right now. And each site's inspected once a month by our stormwater inspection staff. And here is a picture of an active site during mass grading. This is Southern Farms. And it's one of our larger, probably our largest active site at 80 acres and 340 proposed residential units. And one of the major things we look for and inspect during our stormwater inspections is basin or pond construction, function and condition. Here's a picture of 4 different sediment detention basins during various stages of construction. The top 2 pictures are freshly graded and constructed basins. The bottom left is Carolina Commerce Center, really large pond after that huge rain event we had last month. So that's the water settling and sediment filtering out. And the bottom right is a basin that needs to be cleaned. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move over to infrastructure projects, some of the more notable projects this past year. On Daniel Avenue, we had a storm drainage issue and conflict with sewer service resolved in July. This was contractor performed. And on Brookshire Road was fully reclaimed in September and October. And this was a much-needed project, if you recall. It was a 16-foot wide crumbling road, and now we've got a 22-foot wide new road. This was also contractor performed. And then we had Tomotley Court. This was self-performed. We replaced about 140 linear feet of storm drain pipe that was separated and causing sinkholes and settlement along the property line, and it damaged this property owner's driveway. This wasn't an easy project. We did hit some rock. The left-hand picture shows some rock that we had to jackhammer out. So this project started right after I moved over to public services. So in my mind, this was kind of a test project to see what the guys had, and they passed. Weren't sure what capabilities they had, what they would tackle, but they did a good job. So this was kind of a trial project to kind of see what they had. On Executive Drive, we had a sinkhole. The upper right-hand picture shows the old Mako sign that actually sunk straight down into a 20-foot deep corrugated metal pipe that had crushed below ground. We had to hire a contractor with specialized shoring equipment to make this repair. And on Cotton Road, we had a drainage issue and lots of standing water in the shoulder, and we never could locate a culvert after several attempts, so we decided to install one ourselves with our in-house crew. And some notes about current projects that are currently underway. Streetscape project is still going well overall, and although recent rains have slowed the progress a little bit, but that's still going well. Right now, we have a road improvement study underway. We're partnering with KCI Technologies on this project. We're studying West Phillips Road, Westmoreland Road, and Brookshire Road, and the study should be completed in May. Our every 4-year pavement evaluation is scheduled this year as well. We're partnering with Infrastructure Management Services on this job, and their van will be in Greer around the end of March, last week of March. And when I get an exact date, I'll share it with you. And a new opportunity just recently popped up as a result of an SCDOT bridge inspection. We have some maintenance issues with some of the supports on this bridge on Blackwell Road, and these will be evaluating this in the very near future. Another current project is Track It. You may recall this was a new project management and permitting software that we've been in the process of implementing. We had a kickoff meeting with Track It in March of 2018. The planned implementation was 12 to 15 months. The actual implementation was exactly 24 months. We actually went live with that system today, March the 10th. And we did hit some speed bumps, but we expected that. But I think overall it's going basically as expected. So we hope to have that system up and running smoothly in the next several days, week or so. Switching gears now, moving over to street maintenance. This division maintains streets, sidewalks, and storm drainage. And regarding our street signage, the cluster of graphs on the right is 2019. You can see we had 54 posts replaced, 78 street signs replaced, 47 stop signs replaced, and 63 miscellaneous repairs in 2019. The street sweeper swept 2,800 lane miles this past year and sprayed 496 lane miles for weeds. In the spring, summer, and fall, our mowing crew maintained shoulders and logged over 1,500 miles of cutting this past summer. Potholes were up this year, I think mainly due to West Phillips and Brookshire requiring so much attention in the past year or so. This past year, we also replaced over 600 feet of damaged and broken sidewalk. And we also cleaned, inspected, or jetted 3,200 feet of storm drain lines. In the fall and winter each year, we collect leaves for the residents, and this past year we collected 125 loads of leaves. It's down slightly from last year, but it's still a big pile of leaves. That's in a picture there. Gives you some sense of scale there with the dump bed in the side of the picture.
Where did those go? Where are y'all?
There's a gentleman who lives just outside the city that he takes them for, doesn't charge us anything. He keeps them for compost. So it saves us a trip all the way to the landfill. He takes it and puts it in his field. Besides spraying curb lines with our sweeper truck, we also spray other areas. The crew sprayed about 162 miles and used 4,400 gallons of spray for sidewalk, edges of roads, parking lots, alleys, and guardrails. Highlighting the building maintenance division, Dan and his team have had a productive year. Not only does his team keep City Hall, Cannon Center, police and courts building and clean every day, they've also managed some pretty important projects this past year. In March, they managed the Cannon Center roof structure repair. In July, they installed new LED lighting at the Cannon Center. Also in July, they installed a new holding cell at the jail. In September, they managed an ADA compliant sidewalk installation and bathroom upgrade at the Triumph Center. And in October, they managed the installation of a new HVAC system at the Victor Gym. And in November, they managed a new fencing installation also at Victor Gym. So you can see Dan and his team do a lot more than clean buildings and change light bulbs. I have heard recently that they're pretty good at changing light bulbs too. They've replaced over 300 bulbs at the new golf course building, I heard. 300, yes. Moving over to fleet maintenance. We have 165 vehicles spread over all city departments that we maintain, in addition to tractors, leaf machines, EVs, and other small equipment. The numbers for the maintenance shop this past year on the chart, the gold color, we had 349 service oil change jobs, the blue, 95 brake jobs, the tan, 1,425 repairs, either major, minor, or miscellaneous. The green, 377 tire service, and the red, 36 road calls. So active year for the maintenance shop. And our final division is solid waste. We contracted with ACE Environmental to June 2022. And here's a 7-year look at our solid waste totals. We topped 12,000 tons collected this year, and this corresponds to the residential growth we've been experiencing in the past 5 or 6 years, so likely our solid waste collections will go up as well. Waste cart activity, we had 488 carts delivered to new homes, replaced 225, repaired 214, delivered 35 yard waste carts, and delivered 634 recycle bins. This graph shows recycling numbers. These numbers are provided by ACE. The curbside, the red, continues to rise. The recycle center in green seems to be holding steady around 200 tons collected this year. E-waste collected to recycle center this past year was 13 tons. It appears to be trending down. I'm not sure why. I do know that if you bought a TV lately, the TVs are much lighter than they used to be. So could have something to do with it. Not sure. At the spring cleaning day this past April, we had 184 residents participated. We collected 19 55-gallon barrels of paint, flammable liquids, and pesticides, 10 3 cubic yard boxes of aerosols and paint cans, 1,500 pounds of shredded material, 25 pieces of e-waste, 5 tons of building materials, and the police department collected 14 pounds of expired pills and medications. Notable professional compliments this past year in our department. Robert Greer obtained his Certified Floodplain Manager Certificate, and he also attended management and supervision training with ACOG. Yours truly was elected to the Board of Directors for the South Carolina Society of Professional Engineers. Rita Bridwell, J.B. Carson, Eric Herman, and Dean Rummel were recertified in hazardous material operations, OSHA Level 2, and Eric Herman and J.B. Carson obtained their certification as AB operators for underground storage tanks. That's a summary of our activity for 2019. So looking ahead, briefly, our work management systems are largely paper-based and behind the times, so we'll be looking at better ways to manage our work through asset management system, a fleet management system, work order system. We'll consider dedicated teams where appropriate, and we'll also be reviewing our solid waste operations. It takes good people and equipment to do all this work, and this is our public services team. This is a dedicated group committed to serving the city, and we've all had some adjustments this past year with our restructuring, but we do have a good team in place, and personally look forward to seeing what we will come in the future. And with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Council?
Steve, I mentioned to you before, but, we've recently real heavy rains, as I've been riding around, go by some of the active construction sites. You guys are doing a really good job. Many years ago, you would see the ditches and then the streams and then the rivers, they would just be muddy. Now they're not. I mean, of course, they do get some debris out there, but generally it's not from active construction sites. It's something else. And so I think that's with everything that's going on in the city, I think that speaks volumes.
Thanks, sir. Others?
I appreciate it. It sounds like you've been very, very busy.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate all you're doing.
Good.
Taking on a load there, I think. Yeah. On the day. It's very good.
We do thank you, sir, and convey to your crews and folks out there that we appreciate all they do, and thank them for being available to us on an as-needed basis. And we know that job often is oftentimes performed in not the best of weather and under the best of conditions. So we thank you for all y'all are doing out there. Appreciate it. Triggers, we're down to your report, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and council, a couple of things to make you aware of. One, we issued a notice to all of our employees, actually issued that notice yesterday, relative to the protocols that we are following in response to the coronavirus concerns in our area. Those protocols are established for us primarily as our need to maintain a safe workplace. Also, as we encourage and adopt practices protecting the health of our employees, our customers, our visitors, and others. There will be continued discussions, obviously, with Mayor Danner about what our protocols would be if we begin to experience more of a community experience to the coronavirus. There are certain authorities provided in those health emergencies that are delegated to the mayor of a community, and we'll continue to have those conversations. It's a situation that we don't know what is around the corner, and so our best prevention is to be prepared with practices and with protocols in place. Some of those obviously would include things like don't report to work sick, but you will be amazed. We have very good, dedicated employees, and oftentimes people will come to work even though they should not be here. In consideration of again, our coworkers and the community at large, we are requiring those employees that if they do report to work with flu-like symptoms, we are immediately sending them back home. Not that there's necessarily an issue that we suspect they may have coronavirus. It is simply to prevent the spread of flu-like symptoms in our workplace. So we're taking those types of precautions as well. You'll see sanitizers and disinfecting equipment throughout the city. We're providing that in all areas where the public is entering into public buildings, all elevator areas, all workstation areas. Every employee in the city at their respective workstation has been provided hand sanitizer for their immediate areas. Our employees that have interaction with general public relative to frontline operations, their protocol is that after the exchange of every transaction, they are required to sanitize, and because we exchange a lot of items, forms, blueprints, money, documents, and we're again exchanging that constantly through an environment that we may not know what someone else coming into our facility, what their exposures may or may not have been previously. So some of those are some of the things that we're involved in. We certainly want to make sure that if our community is affected in a more widespread area or in a fashion, we want to make sure that we can continue operations of local government services, especially those relative to public safety. And so we are making sure that we do everything that we can that will protect not only our employees as they continue to operate, but having them here so that they can provide those protections to our community as well. We hope that this exercise is overkill in the end, but we are absolutely convinced that it is the appropriate measures for us to take to be prepared if the situation in our community should worsen. And so wanted you to be aware that those measures have been put into place as we continue to move forward. If you have any questions about that, I'm certainly glad to answer that. Our health and safety team is heavily involved in that. Our risk management director, which is our fire chief, has responsibility for risk management, is heavily involved in that. We are getting daily updates from CDC as well as from DHEC, just making sure that we're informed about what's going on around us. Again, we hope that it's overkill, but we believe that it's necessary to be prepared. Any questions about what we're doing in that regard?
I just hope you say to our employees, we appreciate their loyalty and dedication, but if you're 60, I don't understand.
We understand, exactly. Yes, we think that is in the best interest of all of the remaining employees that are here on site with us. As we know, we're approximately 300 strong on our of employees with the city, and we need them all to be healthy so that we can continue to do what we're charged to do in our community. Okay. One of the things that under our contract with our residential waste collection contractor, ACE Environmental, is that periodically there needs to be an adjustment to the routing schedules that they do. As we know, when we look at housing starts, additional multifamily, single residential, whatever is happening out there in the community, it is increasing the number of stops, the number of households that they are providing that service to, and that doesn't always coincide exactly where the routing currently is. About 3 years ago, we made some adjustments to the routing. Previously, or where we are right now, our Monday collection, ACE Environmental collects for us on a 3-day program. They collect today 3,512 units on Mondays, a little over 5,500 on Tuesdays, and about 1,600 plus on Wednesdays. We're needing to rebalance that a bit. And so effective on April the 6th, we'll have some rerouting that will take us to a little over 4,500 on Mondays, about 4,300 on Tuesdays, and about 2,200 on Wednesdays. That number will continue to grow as we continue to grow as a municipality. All affected households that may have a change to their collection date, they will receive a communication, a direct communication from ACE. It'll be placed on a door hanger. There'll also be a notice provided to the actual garbage container for them as well, and then we'll also be utilizing social media, other means that we have of contacting our public on that process. They're hopeful to get that implementation changed over by April 6th. You may get some calls from someone, especially if the question may be, they missed my garbage pickup. And that may be because we're coming a day earlier or a day later. Many folks are staying on their existing day, but there are some that are changing as a result of that rebalancing. As we ramp up in this process, they do know that if we have those types of misses, they will be redispatched to go back out and to make those collections. Our hope is to only have to do that no more than once, because if your day has changed and you notify us that it was missed, we come out and pick it up outside of route. There's a reasonable expectation that from that point forward, you should know that your route day has changed. But the key in this is communication, and we will be working with and monitoring how ACE does that, as well as us getting that information as well. I can provide some mapping information to you. We've got it in digital format. It's a bit kind of hard to see because the city's large, and so when you get that to a document like this, it becomes really hard to kind of see that. But we'll get this posted on our website as well. You'll have the ability to zoom in so that you can see areas within your respective districts that are changing, as well as the public can go to that site and they can see that as well. But we'll be getting that communication out. Again, our contract with them authorizes that they can make a change annually, but they have to do that with notice. It's been about 3 years, and they have provided us sufficient notice for us to prepare for that. Hopefully, the intent is that it makes their collection operation more efficient, and with more efficient operation, it helps us maintain costs. And that is the primary reason that we would do that, is to continue to contain and maintain our cost structure relative to curbside residential garbage collection. Again, any questions about that, I'm glad to try to answer that. Excellent. Reminder, your annual economic interest reports due by March 30th. So you've got a couple of weeks left on that. You'll now start getting email reminders from us. We'll go to the website. We'll look to see those that are filed and those that are not filed. If you haven't filed, we'll continue to reach out and say, please don't forget that your economic interest forms are required to be submitted to the State Ethics Commission no later than March 30th without penalty. A couple of us have experienced those penalties over time. They will do that. I missed it one year and I was charged $100 for one day. And so I don't think I've ever missed it again. So it's important for us to get those submitted on time. From a update on our synergy projects, very briefly, it was mentioned a bit that our streetscape project downtown has been impacted by rain. Everything has been impacted by rain. We are not behind schedule, but we are no longer ahead of schedule. So we are moving along. They are keeping crews out there on a regular basis. They have now remobilized to be able to keep crews in on Saturdays when necessary, and so they're trying to make up some of that time there. We really were in a situation that they could have pulled out because the contract allows them to do that during heavy rain, and so we could have lost ground relative to those allowed rain days. To Sossaman's credit, they've stayed committed to us. They've made measures, use of stone and other things to make sure that they're working in well-compacted, dry area, that if they're digging in the mud and they can't get dry dirt, so we're using a lot of stone, but in the long run for us, that's not a bad thing. Good stone in our subgrade is giving us a better stability long-term as well. So the rain has been a challenge, but we're keeping moving forward on that. Also, under our synergy projects, we are anticipating to actually mobilize and go to construction on our garage, our municipal parking garage. We are expecting that mobilization to happen in April. And so that's a bit of a moving target as well because of rain. The hotel project is mobilized and is on that site. They're at the early stages of installing footers for the hotel site, and because that is in the dirt and in the mud, that is causing some substantial issues for them, but they are committing to move forward. I will be meeting with the developer of that project tomorrow to make sure that we're all on the same page about how that coordination between their contractor and our contractor smoothly takes place there on the site. But again, had an opportunity to meet with our general contract earlier today, and they've submitted all of their documents to us that are needed by us for them to prepare to mobilize, and we're expecting that to happen in April. Their construction will be less time frame than the hotel itself, so we knew that they could start later and they'll be able to finish earlier simply because the amount of time for construction for the garage is less than for the hotel itself. So we're in good shape on that project moving forward as well. Looking forward to seeing it start to come out of the ground though. Those are the items that I needed to share with council this evening. Certainly available to answer any questions that you may have. Don't have answers this evening, we'll certainly make sure we get those to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, and we appreciate it. We'll move to appointments of boards and commission. We've got two at the present time. We've got an opening now on the Board of Architectural Review. Mr. Marty Hannon has resigned effectively immediately. His term expires 6/30/2020. We will look to our staff to help us refill that position. There are qualifications and regulations that have to be met in that regard. If you would like to find out more information about what some of those qualifications are and how someone might qualify to be on the Board of Architectural Review, I would urge you to see the Planning and Zoning Department. They'll be glad to assist you with that. Also have a opening still on the Planning Commission. This is the District 3 opening that Mr. Hopper vacated, and that position, I believe, remains open.
It does indeed, yes, sir.
We will look for a suggestion from him to fill that in the near future. With those two being attended to, we will move to our first and only item of old business, which is the second and final reading of ordinance number 5/2020. This is an ordinance approving a major change to a design review district of certain real property inside the city of Greer. We have Ms. Cody with us this evening in regards to the second and final reading of ordinance 5/2020. Any new or additional information in that regard?
No new information.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Items of new business, the first of which is the first reading of ordinance number 6/2020. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by the city of Greer located at 2299 and 2999 Gap Creek Road by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of R20 for said property. Ms. Gotti joins us as well for the first reading of ordinance number 6/2020. Information in that regard?
Sure. Again, this is an annexation request for two properties, approximately a little under 160 acres, located along Gap Creek Road. The property is proposed for continued use as a golf course. This is an aerial of the site of the two properties. This is the zoning and floodplain map. And then this is the future land use. You can see residential land use 3 in the brown color, and then green is public community. The Planning Commission will conduct a public hearing on March 23rd for the zoning of this parcel, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
This is typically where I would ask for the owner or representative of the owner of the property to raise their hand. And probably a lot of people in here able to qualify for that, so I'm not sure that I need to do that this evening, council. This comes to you for first reading. I will entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion or questions.
the transaction has already taken place as far as the purchase.
Correct, we are closed on the property.
All right. Are we going to put this into, we spoke about it, but
Conservation easement, yes. That was recorded with the deed upon purchase. Yes. Yes, so it will never be developed for residential use. It will always be dedicated as green space, forever.
Others? Comments? Questions? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Ms. Cuddy, if you would allow me just a minute, I want to address ordinance number 7-2020 before we delve into the information that you've got. I think it's incumbent upon us as both the council and staff to give some overview and insight into the process and procedure that has brought us to this point. If you'd like to sit, you may. I don't know how long I'll be, so. Or you can stand right there if you want to, either one. But I know that I have had, and I think other members of council have had as well, questions about how, why, what takes place in terms of a rezoning. And I felt like this might be a good opportunity for us to give an overview of that so that there is at least a better understanding and possibly some information that may not have been shared before about how this works from beginning to end, because this process doesn't necessarily happen in a vacuum. State law dictates much of what we do and how we do it and when we do it, and our staff works very closely with the Planning Commission to stay abreast of those changes and those regulations to give them some structure in that regard. And we play a vital role in that as well, too. And so I thought tonight it might be at least a good idea for us to talk about how some of these things happen, because they don't just appear here and randomly get a decision made in some regard. It is a process and it is a procedure, and it's one that ultimately is guided by this document right here. And if you've never had an opportunity to see that, it is available. It is, and this is the 2010 Comprehensive Plan, and it is accompanied by our 2015 update. I'd like to, if I could, read briefly from the 2010 plan. Because this plan was done, completed actually in 1999, and I think it gives us some insight into where we are today. In the opening page, the introduction actually of the 2010 Comprehensive Plan, it says, "This introduction to the City of Greer's 1999 Comprehensive Plan presents a vision for the future of this community. 10 years later, it is rewarding to see how much of that vision has come to pass, tempered by the realization that there is much left to do. Not so much in tasks left incomplete or in promises left unfulfilled, but in the fact that while many great things have happened in 10 years, each success creates the need and desire to address new or evolving challenges. The vision put forth in 1999 is typical in that it describes the type of community in which most people want to live, work, play, and visit. That same vision is alive and well, demonstrated by the continued desire for the people in this community to share their thoughts and ideas while developing a new plan. By engaging the community in conversation about what they believe has been done right and where they see the need for improvement as the city moves forward, it quickly becomes apparent the overriding desire was to make this community better than any other. While required by state law, this plan is rooted not solely on legal requirements, but in a guiding principle, embraced and advocated by this community for smart and responsible planning to manage the tremendous growth and rapid development that the city and surrounding area continues to experience. From that opening, it moves on to a statement that I want to read as well, because it is the purpose and the requirement of the comprehensive plan. South Carolina's Local Government Comprehensive Planning Enabling Act of 1994 requires all local governments that regulate land use to do so under a written comprehensive plan. The plan must be reviewed and updated every 5 years, with a new plan written every 10 years to address growth and development that has an impact on existing and future planning needs. The City of Greer adopted its first comprehensive plan in 1999 and reviewed it in 2004. The new plan will address the city's growth and development planning needs through 2020. The comprehensive plan is developed through the combined efforts of residents, business leaders, and public officials to reflect all aspects of the community. It serves as a guide for such planning tools as the zoning ordinance, the land use and zoning maps, subdivision regulations, etc., to support the goals of the comprehensive plan. It evaluates core planning elements based on a review and inventory of existing conditions and allows adherence to a vision established through community input and provides the framework for developing implementation strategies necessary to attain that vision. The purpose and requirements of the comprehensive plan include 9 elements that must be considered. Those elements are population, economic development, housing, community facilities, cultural resources, natural resources, transportation, land use, and priority investment. It is incumbent on us to understand the reason that we do some of the things that we do, and we find that set forth in these 2 documents are a vision of what we want to be in the future. It is our guiding principle to follow this. And as it says, we do it by law, but we also do it with the understanding that as a growing community, that from time to time we are going to face the issues of growth and how we deal with those. And we have had some of those issues with growth, and we know that we will continue to have issues with growth as the upstate community continues to grow. We know that the numbers in the upstate are going to grow exponentially, and those people are going to look for a place to live. And we hope that they find a place in Greer that they like to live. And so we want to be responsible. So let me talk just a little bit about the Planning Commission itself, its functions and duties, because I think there may have been some misunderstanding about that as well. A local planning commission has a duty to engage in a continuous planning program for the physical, social, and economic growth, development, and redevelopment of the area within its authority. There's 9 minimum elements of the comprehensive plan, which we just discussed, and any other element prepared for the particular jurisdiction, which must be designed to promote public health, safety, morals, convenience, prosperity, and general welfare, as well as the efficiency of the economy in the area of concern. Each element must be based on careful and comprehensive surveys and studies of existing conditions, and probable future development includes recommendations for implementing specific planning activities. The local governing body or planning commission may add activities, but they are responsible for 2 things: the comprehensive plan for preparing and periodically revising the plan and programs for development and redevelopment, and the implementation, which includes preparing and recommending measures for implementing the plan by the appropriate governing body, including the following measures: They can consider the zoning ordinances, the regulations for subdivision and development of land. They can consider the official map, landscape ordinances, capital improvement programs, policies, and procedures. The 1994 Act makes it clear that the Planning Commission does not have the authority to administer zoning regulations or ordinances. It cannot grant variances, use variances, or special exceptions. The Act does not allow for the Planning Commission or governing body to grant special uses, conditional uses, or uses upon review. Appeals, variances, and special exceptions come with exclusive jurisdiction from the Board of Zoning Appeals. There is no provision for zoning appeals to come from or to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission makes no final decisions regarding zoning. In regards to zoning, and we won't delve into our zoning manual too much, but indeed there is a zoning manual that we follow as well too. And what it says is that the zoning ordinance guides all development in accordance with existing and future needs of the community to promote public health, safety, morals, convenience, order, appearance, prosperity, and general welfare. These are the purposes of all local government and hold police power regulations. The 1994 Act is responsible for consideration of the following purposes when it is applied: to provide adequate light and air and open space, to prevent the overcrowding of land or undue concentration of population and lessen congestion on roads, facilitate the creation of a convenient, attractive, and harmonious community, protect and preserve scenic, historic, or ecologically sensitive areas, regulate the density and distribution of population, as well as the use of buildings, structures, and land for trade, industry, residence, recreation, agriculture, forestry, conservation, airports, water supply, sanitation, protection against floods, public activities, and other purposes. Facilitate the adequate provision or availability of public transportation, fire, police, water, sewer, school, parks, recreation facilities, affordable housing, disaster evacuation, and other public services or requirements. Secure safety from fire, flood, and other damages. Further promote the general welfare of the specified area as ordered by the governing body. I say all that to say this: the function of our planning and zoning department is to create and enforce an orderly plan. The issue that was before the planning commission the other night was a rezoning of a piece of property. I've been asked several times how that takes place, and it is a very straightforward proposition. The owner of a piece of property, in this case, a piece of property that was zoned, I believe, in 1995, if I'm not mistaken, with an I-1 industrial zoning. Now, I knew your dad well. I knew your sister and brother-in-law well in their house. I visited it many times back in the 70s. And know that area for a long time. He was a premier manufacturer. He built quite a reputation as a manufacturer in this area, and also as an industrial developer. He was a smart man. When he brought his land into the city, he did so with an industrial zoning. I think he did that partly because he was an industrial developer. I think he also did that because he knew that allowed the most uses that could possibly happen on that piece of property that there were. We normally, I don't think, would have offered an industrial zoning in that particular area, but at that time he was allowed to do that. I don't know, and I've heard some comment about we would prefer that it stay industrial. I would urge you to look at our zoning regulations. I'm not exactly sure that you want I-1 next to a residential community. It allows for building heights up to 90 feet. It allows for manufacturing. It allows for a number of things that I'm not sure that you would particularly want. It also would allow those things to occur without this input that you're going to be given tonight. Because if the land's already zoned for industrial, you don't have to have a hearing, or you don't have to have the different things that would allow that to take place. And you could wake up to an industrial park being developed on that entire piece of property if Mr. Runyon chose to do so. And I'm not going to argue whether or not that's going to take place. You've heard tonight from him. But the possibility that it could happen remains there. And the fact that there are already tractor-trailer trucks traveling on that road, I don't know that you would want to see an additional 50 or 75 a day to an industrial site. So what I would like to do as we move forward here this evening is to remember that as that request came to our Planning Commission, it did so under the auspices of, is changing a piece of land from an I-1 zoning to a multifamily residential zoning an appropriate decision? In the eyes of our staff, it was an appropriate decision based on the comprehensive plan, which very clearly shows that area being residential in nature, both in 1999 and in the future. And also, it is a transition from I-1, which has, as I mentioned earlier, one of the least amounts of restriction on it, to one that has a greater amount of restrictions on it. There is an opportunity here as we move forward in regards to discussion on this, to have a situation where we have a plan for this piece of property. I've been asked and told in some regards that not all of the information is available about this project. And I will tell you now that this council considers many projects that we don't have all of the information about. In fact, if this had come without a recommendation, we wouldn't have the ability to talk with and discuss this with the developer and have a situation where we might get involved in addressing some of the issues that you have raised that are legitimate issues. I don't argue that there's more traffic on Gibbs Shoals Road. I have driven that road for over 40 years on a regular basis. I also know that there's a lot more traffic where all of us live, and we deal with that on a regular basis. What is coming before us tonight, again, on the recommendation of the Planning Commission, is this appropriate in terms of the rezoning. Now, I suspect our conversation will broaden from that task that we have been given tonight, and we often do consider other things. But as you can tell, based on the comprehensive plan, based on the zoning that we have, regulations around what can be done and not done, and then considering what we build tonight, I hope that we would have done a better job of explaining to you the task that is before us tonight. And so with that, we'll engage in our conversation about ordinance number 7, 2020. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by CMT Investors LLC, located at 1940 Gibbs Shoals Road, from I-1 Industrial to DRD Design Review District. Ms. Cotty, do you have information in regards to the first reading of ordinance number 7-2020?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. Again, ordinance 7-2020 is a rezoning request for a parcel located at the intersection of Gibbs Shoals Road and West Phillips Road. The request is to rezone the property from I-1 Industrial to DRD Design Review District, and the purpose of this request is to allow up to 252 apartment units ranging from 1 to 3 bedrooms. So this is an aerial view of the site. This is our zoning and floodplain map. The dark blue that you see is I-1 Industrial, and then the lighter blue is S1 Services. And then that lighter gray is the floodplain. This is a future land use map from our comprehensive plan, as the mayor explained earlier. The blue coloring is employment center, And then the lighter brown color to the north is residential land use 2 community. This is a current aerial or street view of the site. My apologies. So this is a copy of the proposed site plan. Again, with DRD zoning districts, we do have site plans and then statements of intent that are adopted with the ordinance that kind of tie the developer to these regulations with the zoning. So this is the site plan for the site. You'll see 10 apartment complex buildings throughout the site. The building in the middle of the site is a clubhouse, and then there's amenity areas and pool amenity area kind of centralized on that site as well. There are 5 garages interspersed throughout as well, throughout the parking. You'll see 2 access points via Gibbs Shoals Road. They are showing on the site plan a realignment of West Phillips Road to come in at a 90-degree angle. I'll mention this during the statement of intent, but the road alignment and road improvements at this intersection will have to be worked out before a final development plan is submitted for review and approval by the Planning Commission. This is just the site plan as well overlaid onto an aerial of the site to give a better feel for how it would incorporate with existing conditions. And then just some highlights from the statement of intent. Again, the proposed use is an apartment complex with up to 252 units, ranging from 1 to 3 bedrooms. The buildings will range in 3 to 4 stories with a 45 height maximum. There is a density proposed not to exceed 13.6 units per acre. In terms of setbacks and side yards, there is a 25-foot setback along all boundaries, and then there's a 30-foot front yard along Gibbs Shoals Road, and then a 15-foot side yard landscaped along the other boundaries. In terms of building materials, and the next slide does show an elevation, but they're proposing to use fiber cement or an equal composite siding with fiber cement trim, along with stone or brick accents, and then architectural asphalt shingles with standing seam roofing accents, which again you'll see in those elevations. Parking spaces are proposed at 2 spaces per unit. And then in terms of infrastructure, you saw on the site plan the 2 ingress-egress proposed from Gibbs Shoals Road. A traffic study has been required from SCDOT, and we have spoken with the SCDOT engineers, and improvements at that intersection will be required before this project would be able to get an encroachment permit. So in terms of exactly what that improvement is, we're not certain at this time, but again, that would have to be worked out before a final development plan could be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. This is the proposed elevations. Again, you can see the building materials, and then you can see some of those accents along with the roofing accents as well. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on February 17th, and the Planning Commission recommended approval. I am here, as well as my fellow planner and the city engineer, to answer any questions along with, I believe, the applicant.
Thank you, ma'am. By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Available for questions or comments if council has questions? Thank you. So noted. Council will entertain a motion to receive ordinance number 7-2020. I'll take one of those as a motion. I need a second, please.
Second. Thank you. Second.
You got it. Thank you, ma'am. Floor is open for discussion.
I'll say thank you for all of you that came out, and thank you for those that sent the emails regarding your comments regarding the property and the situation that you've lived there. And I will certainly agree with you on the Gibbs Shoals Road. It is very narrow. I do go on it myself quite often. either going over to Woodland Elementary School or either going out and getting on Batesville Road there at the, and it has become a lot of traffic on Batesville Road, so trying to get off Gibbs Shoals onto Batesville Road gets to be a problem at times too. And I will go back and address Dillard intersection there. I have sent requests 2 different times over the last several years regarding traffic light to be installed there. And in talking with them, it just doesn't meet the criteria, whatever the criteria is, whether it's additional accidents or whatever, for that traffic light to be put up. So I will tell you that I will go ahead and make a suggestion again that they do another study, because I know that area has certainly grown with another subdivision, with the cottages there, and that all the traffic out there in the new subdivisions in the area, that it does make it very difficult in the mornings. I'd even asked them about if they could do like a peak times, like in the morning hours when maybe it could work at certain hours when the schools were in and people going to work, that would help. Didn't have to work all day long, because you can ride out there in the middle of the day and you have no problem. But just ask them for it to be set up that maybe it could work in the mornings and work in the afternoon when the kids get out of school, when the parents are going to pick them up in the school bus, and when people are getting off from work and things like that. But I didn't get very far with that, but I did make the request twice, and doesn't hurt to try a third time. So anyway, so we'll ask on that again and see if we can't get you some relief there. And I had not heard about the bridge going out, so I was concerned, I was made aware of that. So, that kind of will create a lot of inconveniences for people as well with the bridge going out. We, of course, don't know how long that will be. And the only other thing I could say was, like the mayor had pointed out, going from industrial, if it did remain industrial and they put a plant there, you may end up with the same amount of cars. A lot of my concerns have been with the overcrowding of the Woodland Elementary, Riverside Middle, Riverside High. And they probably have the larger attendance of basically almost any schools right here in our area. We've got quite a few elementary schools, and then we've got, several middle schools and high schools. But I would say that those 3 are probably 3 of the most crowded, would be Woodland. And with having that new subdivision across the street there, I could see what the concerns would be, bringing that into more situations with portables and all that. So.
I would like to note that Greenville County Schools was represented at our PAC meeting for this project, and they did make a statement that they weren't very concerned with the number of children that they see. This type of use doesn't have nearly the amount of generation of students as a typical single-family detached residential. And even they also feel that way about townhomes as well. So they have seen the project, and they didn't raise any concern.
Yeah, I know that they're supposed to be there and present their views or, express their concerns, but yeah. Don't know how many kids they have in the schools either.
Mr. Mayor, the point Judy makes about the traffic is, it brings to light something that we've known for quite some time, that our roads department doesn't jump to it when we call them and say we need this. If it hadn't been for clout, we'd probably still be wanting a 6-lane Wade Hampton Boulevard and a 4-lane Highway 101 to Woodruff and a Vern Smith Freeway. The days have changed, times have changed, and the way they do business has really changed. The suggestion that there be a moratorium until the roads are improved, that's not the way they do business. It's not you build it and they will come. It's as far as the road, the development happens and then the road happens. And if we were to put a moratorium on it, we might not ever build another house in the city of Greer. So it's a carrot and stick, and nobody knows who has what anymore. God knows I've talked to them enough about the entire city of Greer about what's needed, and their ideas and my ideas don't tend to intersect. They think they're doing a great job and they got it covered. So there is one trigger that I found that gets them moving, and that's a traffic death. That's the one thing that does get them moving, is when there's a death. They'll put in a turning lane, or they'll put in a turning light, or something of that nature. But that's all we have to work with, and we can only do the best we can in trying to influence them. But you people can do the more influencing of the roads with the state and the county. They just don't listen to local government all that much.
I think it's a valid point. Your best advocates are those that represent the roads, and unfortunately, most of the roads in that area are either state-owned or county-owned. I've done my share of talking tonight, but I attended the SCDOT State of the Roads, SC Roads, speech by Secretary Christy Hall. Let me just give you a brief overview of some of the points that she touched on. By their own admission, there is 30 years of deferred maintenance on state-owned roads. The cost to simply repave those roads alone would be over $40 billion. We have the fourth largest road system in the nation, the sixth fastest growing population, and the fourth highest total in the nation of road fatalities. Half of our current road system is a F or below. We have over 30 years of ranked projects in the queues right now. Funding is so limited that SCDOT is focused only on 4 target areas: rural road safety, interstates, bridge replacements, and major road paving projects. The reason that they find themselves in this predicament is that paving funds are used to leverage federal funds, but the federal funds have been stagnant over the last years, so that the growing pot is sliced even thinner. Only 26% of the major highways in South Carolina ranked good or above. Only 17% of the farm-to-market roads, Gibb Shoals being one of those, has a good or above ranking. South Carolina has a target of improving farm-to-market roads to good or above on 40% of those roads if you're willing to wait in the next 2 decades. You need to have a discussion with Mr. Cox and with your Senator Talley about how he can help assist in bringing some relief to those roads. We did ask for some information about those roads, and I think it was initiated by Councilman Albert to give us some information both from the state and our own police department. Gibb Shoals Road averages 8,600 cars a day. No, excuse me. Yeah, a day. There was 25 reported accidents on Gibb Shoals Road last year. Hammett Bridge Road averages 8,800 cars a day. There were 53 reported accidents on Hammett Bridge Road in the city. And Brushy Creek Road averages right at 10,000 cars a day and had 71 reported accidents last month. So those are traffic counts provided by the SCDOT and our police department. The state of that road is not good, but if you look at the bulk of the accidents that happen, if people wouldn't drive too fast for conditions or follow too closely or failure to yield right away, you could reduce the number of accidents on that road to about 20%. So 80% of the accidents are related to driver error out there. Again, information from SCDOT and our police department. Others?
I just want to thank everyone who emailed. I didn't get any calls, but I got a lot of emails, which is great. You need to be involved. I know that it is an issue. It's not. It was the same discussion we had a few weeks back. It's a different group, a different portion of the city, and it was very similar facts. We have a lot of traffic. It's all clogged up in the mornings and the evenings. Traffic count has gone up. You know, everything that you've brought up, and everything was feeding on a state road. And if you were one of the folks who emailed me, I hope you indulged me and read the entire response back, because it was kind of lengthy. But the way the Gibb Shoals Road the area has developed is that now it's still a 2-lane road, but it used to be much more narrow. The bridge that was mentioned earlier, it would flood a lot, and the widening and the repaving and the improvements did not happen until development began, and that includes the replacement of the bridge, the one we have now. So what you're hearing is the state has the most roads of almost all the states in the United States, and it's our roads are in deplorable shape. I live right off Brushy Creek Road, and if you look at the section where I live, we've contacted the state several times because it literally is falling apart. The road has failed, and the city made an inquiry as to when this was going to fall on the list for reconstruction, and it's not even on the list. So, which means, probably not in anybody's time. But anyway, please, you may not agree with decisions that I make or the council makes, but do know that a lot of thought and effort goes into making every decision.
Mayor and Council, you know that this is in District 3, which I have the privilege of representing. I am the recent arrival to our body. It's already been a privilege to serve with you. It's been a privilege to interact with residents. I look out and see folks who I've interacted with even when running for this opportunity to serve you, and over the last month and a half as well. And it's been a very instructive process for me, both leading up to the election, and then as soon as the signs went out, I did get calls, and I did get emails, and I did get texts, and I appreciate that. I want to thank, if you've reached out to me, I think probably the rest of council would probably echo this sentiment. Your feedback, your concerns, the way you've interacted with me has been very respectful, very, very objective, and I appreciate that opportunity to have that interaction. If you paid attention when I was running for this opportunity to serve the city, to serve you, I made very clear that I am very supportive of growth in our city. My family and I have lived in Greer for 10 years before we became active in serving in our city. We are the beneficiaries of the growth that we've been experiencing for a very long time, but we've also endured some of the same headaches, some of the same challenges that I know you're expressing concerns with right now. So that being said, I came into this opportunity to serve you and to represent you on council as being favorable of growth. And we talked a lot about smart growth during the campaign as well. And so this has been a immediate opportunity for me to sort through that rhetoric and apply that on behalf of trying to help make the best possible decision for our community and for your immediate area over there. I want you to know that I've driven up and down Gibb Shoals many, many, many times in the last month and a half specifically, but I spent a lot of time over there even during the campaign as well, getting to know y'all. And I know there is a problem. There's absolutely a problem. I was receiving emails and calls about Dillard and Gibb Shoals even before the election, that we need to do something there as far as regulating traffic, because like you say, it's tough getting out at certain times in the morning. Making those turns is pretty dicey. I've enjoyed opportunities to interact with the applicant as well. I am a firm supporter of folks being able to do with their property within reason, what they see fit, use their property. I'm in favor of you on your property, your house, me at my home, using my property as I see fit, as long as I'm not imposing unreasonably on those around me as well. And so, supportive of that. I think the work that is going to be done in one form or another at West Phillips and Gibbs Shoals, that's a mess. Don't need to tell you there. That's just the visibility, the sight line. I think potentially this would be a net win, some sort of work there. So I'm encouraged by that. That being said, what you've expressed to me and what I clearly understand is that's not the only issue on Gibbs Shoals. Going up to Batesville Road, Dry Pocket, where that ties in, coming back Dillard and Gibbs Shoals, going clear back out to 14. There's significant troubles, and that's something that whatever council decides to do tonight and moving forward, whatever happens with this request. I want you to know that I've heard you loud and clear. I see that there's absolutely a problem. There's work that needs to be done. While we don't have direct influence to be able to unilaterally fix that ourselves, I can tell you that Representative Cox and I have talked many, many times. We will continue to talk many, many times. I know he is wanting very much to partner with me, with us, to use this conversation as an impetus to get something done, to try to move the needle for the situation. Things that even today that I discussed on the phone with him, even widening shoulders, signage, signalization, the signs. So just know that is very much on my radar. I guess my trouble at this point is just the timing, I suppose. I don't have any trouble with the development of the property. I don't have any trouble with even the product itself necessarily, but given the volume and the type of feedback from residents, I guess that's been my struggle in all of this. Is what I'm hearing from you is we just want to know what we're getting into so that we can hopefully respond the best we possibly can along the way. And I think that there's prudence with that as well, even if we see value in moving forward in some form.
Thank you. Others? Questions? Comments? Information from staff? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
No.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? No. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, the next item before us this evening is the first reading of ordinance number 8-2020. This is authorizing the relocation of certain alleys and a quick claim deed for portions of the said alleys and other related matters. We will take a brief respite here, allow some folks to leave, and then
Well said, Mark.
That makes sense. That makes
Mr. Riggers, information in regards to ordinance number 8-2020.
Yes, sir. This property is located where we are constructing the hotel and the garage in that area. In our design of the garage, we are providing for access to the rear of the existing buildings that face Poinsett Street. There was a need for us to make sure that there was service accessibility at the rear of those buildings. They had that previously. That was previously provided through two alleyways that ran, one at the rear of the Speedy Jenny property, which will be now the driveway that will take you into the entrance of the garage and will wrap around the garage and give access to the rear of those properties. There was also a public alleyway that ran through the center of the property between what was Stagg's Plumbing, going through to the Tire Exchange, into the right behind the Great Bay Oyster House. Part of our development agreement for the hotel project is that, as you may recall, we acquired the house that was on Jason Street, and we would be transferring that property, which we have already done, transferring that property to the development. The hotel developer is transferring to us the footprint, the half-acre footprint that the garage will be sitting on, and the alleyways were to be relocated in that. For that to be recorded properly, it does require an ordinance of council for the relocation of those, and that is what this ordinance does.
Council, with a recommendation from staff, I'll consider a motion to receive ordinance number 8-2020.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions in that regard? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan.
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Mr. Riggers, do you have information in regards to the Benson Development Agreement for us this evening, or Mr. Deaton will join us for that?
I sure do. I asked Mr. Deaton to provide that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The matter before you here in this item is a proposed project agreement for the Benson, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, and I may have been maybe transposing those brand names a little bit, project on Wadehampton Boulevard. This proposed agreement resembles agreements you've been asked to take up in the past. Toyota is an example, the D&D Ford project, Mitsubishi, where we work with auto dealerships here in the community to help to offset costs of infrastructure, and this project does that in the same form and fashion by reimbursing a business license fee over a period of time to reimburse those costs of public infrastructure. This project represents a $10 million capital investment and 90 jobs retained as a result of this new project. 15 new jobs will be created with the new dealership. Happy to answer any questions that I can for you with respect to this proposed agreement.
Thank you, sir.
I make a motion, we accept it.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion and second, put on the recommendation of staff. We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions in that regard? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Seifert did stay with us. I was afraid we were going to have to hold this matter over. Mr. Seifert comes this evening to give us information in regards to the seeking approval of grant application recommendations from the Accommodations Tax Committee. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I bring to you, that is in your package, the minutes from the meeting from the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee that met on February 25th, and also attached are their recommendations, asking you to approve those this evening. In the February 25th meeting, we received and discussed 8 applications. This is grant monies that are under state law required to receive applications to help fund events in the city that drive tourism within the city. So this year we had $24,329 to distribute. We had 8 applications. The committee is recommending denial of 3 of those projects. Those are Footprints to the Future, Greer Cultural Arts Council, and the Greer Chamber of Commerce are the applicants. And then we have from the committee 5 funding recommendations. The first one is from the South Carolina Charities in support of the BMW Charity Pro-Am in the amount of $15,000, and they requested $15,000. We had a request from the Greer Farmers Market for $20,000. They are recommending $5,000. And then Foothills Harmonic, a request for $4,500. They are recommending $1,443. Greer Chamber of Commerce did a request to sponsor a Greer Family Fest 5K run, requesting $10,000, and they're recommending $1,443. And then the last one is the Edge Skate School program called Learn to Figure Skate. Again, a request of $10,550 and recommending a grant support of $1,443.
Thank you, sir. This comes as a recommendation. Action is required. I'll entertain a motion to receive on the recommendation of staff.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
Who is the South Carolina Charities, Inc.?
I do not know specifically who they are. They are linked with BMW, and they do support and promote and put on the BMW program event. So they're part of the arrangement with BMW to produce the BMW charity event.
That one kind of jumps out at me too. I'm curious to know how that benefits us better than the top 3 there that were denied.
The discussion through the committee was in terms of impact of visitors actually coming into the community. I don't have the applications in front of me, but the scope of that event is very broad, bringing in thousands of people, where some of these others, their impact was minimal, a couple hundred people maybe.
What is the charge as far as the guidelines, or as far as what you, and I know that this golf tournament brings in people to the region. What guideline or what rule says we can't just focus on Greer City?
There's not a guideline that says you can't.
Okay.
In the committee, they were addressing and receiving information on the impact of the number of visitors that do come into the community, knowing that the golf courses that they use are surrounding the community, the impact into the coming into the core of the city and the restaurants and hotels here is what they were looking at for the proposed impact there. What the application did is it also allowed us to become a sponsor of that event, where we are put out there as an advertising sponsor, so that when they're advertising the program, the city of Greer is one of those sponsoring agents.
You know right offhand what courses they're using now?
I don't know for this year, no, sir.
Now, this Edge Skate School, is that going to be the place that's being developed?
Correct.
Well, $15,000 and every dime was approved. And then, and I know that's regional, but when you look at everything that directly impacts the city, the farmer's market, the Philharmonic, and that brings in folks from, all of our arts brings people from all over. I know Greenville County. And then the Edge Skate School, I don't know, I got a little bit of, I have an issue with funding that much. That's,
Well, the chamber requested $24,000, and out of that amount, they were only allotted $1,443, and I know that they've wanted to have a greater impact on tourism, and maybe that was their vision with the Visitor Information Center. I would hope that whoever, that the committee would go back to them and say, this is not necessarily what we were looking for, and hope to regroup with them and figure out a way to get them some dollars allocated, because the business community is a big part of tourism too.
Right. Well, let me back up a little bit. One of the requirements, and we have, as you're aware, we have local accommodations taxes and we have state accommodations taxes. And the committees that look at those funds and how we use them, the requirements are a little different. So for the local accommodations tax, a visitor is defined as somebody that's just outside your community. So it could be, really outside your city limits. The state accommodations money is solely from hotels, whereas the local accommodations and hospitality comes from restaurants and hotels. So the state accommodations is solely from hotels, and their definition of a visitor has a 50-mile radius. So we have, the committee is looking at projects just going to bring somebody in from 50 miles and have an impact on, the city proper. And nobody is arguing that these are not good events for the city, but we're having to look at whether they qualify and bringing in those visitors with the intention of going in a hotel of that 50-mile radius.
So it's the numbers game. So I understand what you're saying now. So on the run, for instance, they were able to quantify, this is how many participants we have running in the fun run, and this is how many people are coming from out of town.
And what they expect is.
Right. Will they stay overnight? And I understand what you're saying. That makes sense. But I don't think the visitor center would have a great impact on that.
While a great idea and very helpful, that in and of itself does not bring somebody into a hotel.
Gotcha.
so this is state accommodation tax, and I think I know, but tell me why we have a committee that we form distributing state money.
Right. Under state law, if you are in a county, which we are now, that receives a certain threshold, you're required by state law to form this committee. When we first started having the state accommodations money coming in, even up until 4 years ago, we did not have a committee, and it was handled administratively, and staff made the recommendation directly to allocate these funds. Under state law, we're required to have this committee. We've broken that threshold. So now it's a more formal process. We take applications, it goes to the committee. The committee is made up of individuals from the hospitality industry, specifically the hotel industry. We have somebody from the cultural arts, and then from the board of the development side. So that's the composition.
And this comes to us as a recommendation, correct?
Correct.
From the committee?
From the committee. We have a motion and a second. So if we wanted to make a change procedurally, what do we have to do? If I wanted to make a motion for a change, we have to vote on this.
If it becomes a recommendation, I think you'd have to vote it up or down.
Just so you know, they're using Thornblade and Cliffs, and they do part of the charities that benefit. That does include Greer Community Ministries and Greer Relief.
And based on your definition, that is the largest event on this list that would have people coming into town and staying overnight, because it's not just the event itself, it's the practice rounds and a lot of other visitors.
And that was part of the discussion of this was, yes, it's the largest event, it's the first year they've applied. We can look next year and look at their report that they file with us to see if the impact is what they anticipated, and that would affect future funding. If they get the impact, they would possibly consider it again. If we don't get the impact, then they would consider maybe a different alternative.
Well, not staying in Greer. Good place for them to stay.
Well, I would be interested to know if they would allow us, in addition to being a sponsor, if they would allow us some literature to, for people to know that, hey, you can come over here and eat too,
Good question. I don't have an answer.
Hopefully we'll fix that by next year.
So
We'll have a hotel next year.
going back to the procedure,
I think if it comes to us as a recommendation from a committee, I'm not sure that we can amend that.
I don't know that procedurally that you could not amend it. My concern is that if it, by definition, creates an unqualified use, then we are at risk of the state oversight committee, because there is they don't watch us too much, but they really watch Hilton Head, Myrtle Beach, and the coastal communities, because they get millions through this program. And they are very intentional of how they monitor the use of those funds. Dave, you may have any additional knowledge. To my knowledge, they have not questioned that in our area previously.
They have questioned, and we've been able to supply reasonable answers where they allow that question to go through, and we just handled that administratively. We have not gotten to the point where we've had to reach anything.
So, I mean, I do think that it is in your purview that if you disagree with the recommendations, that you could reject those in its entirety. I think you could amend that as you would see fit. I'm not aware of legislation in this particular instance that requires any type of a supermajority to do anything different. It is a community-appointed advisory committee to council.
Let me suggest this for where we are right now. It comes to us as a recommendation from a committee that obviously has more insight into this than we have. I will admit I do not know that much about the regulations and rules that govern how tax accommodation money is received and dispersed and that sort of thing. Like any recommendation that comes from a committee, and we haven't been doing this but the last 4 or 5 years, what I might recommend is act upon the recommendation of the committee. We don't always agree, and we have the opportunity to vote no in that regard, and it gives us the opportunity to make suggestions and to seek to make our own requests known to those folks as this time comes up again next year, rather than us going back at this point and trying to make changes or amendments to the work that they've done. I would ask or suggest that we give their recommendations a vote up or down one way or the other.
Well, I understand, what you're saying. I just, in this particular situation, because it's new ground for us, that I agree with you, but I don't. I agree with you in the way to proceed tonight, but in the future I don't, because it's like any of the CDBG dollars. We have the ability to move whatever, because my opinion is you help Greer first. And to Riley, he did say that they're giving money, but how much money?
Well, I don't know, but here's one good one for you. I don't know why in the world Riverside High School Band Boosters would qualify as a charity under this, and they're one of them also.
And they're getting money out of that?
That's what it says.
They are going to England.
Oh, well, we want them to have a great time.
I mean, that's good for our staff.
Oh, I'm sure they're promoting us.
Yeah.
That one just doesn't fit with multiple sclerosis and Pendleton Place and all the others. I don't know how that got in there.
And, you know, I think that, in my opinion, that the ones that were approved for funding, Farmers Market, the Foothills Philharmonic, 5K run, and the skate school. I mean, that actually brings dollars right into downtown. I mean, that brings tourism dollars into downtown. Whereas, you know, the BMW charity pro-am, it's kind of self-serving, we're getting an advertisement out of the deal.
I do think, to the question of are they qualified uses, I think anything that the committee would have recommended, any level of funding, designates that it is a qualified use. Otherwise, they would have said no funding, because no funding is to indicate that it is not a qualified use under the state statute.
And I'm not challenging that that's a qualified use for the...
Right.
Yeah, I think the dollars could be used better somewhere else.
Yeah.
Others? Final comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
No.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
No.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Council, that concludes our regularly scheduled meeting. There are items in executive session that may need consideration. We'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mayor, if I may, item 3 may be removed. Item C.
Thank you, sir. We'll have 2
Item
items in
C.
executive session. I'll entertain a motion on those 2 items.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we enter into executive session to discuss 2 economic development matters pertaining to Project Blakely and Project Homecoming as allowed by state statute, section 30-47085.
Comes as a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. We stand in executive session.
Just because you're leaving, you don't have to squeeze everything into one meeting.
And there was not that many items on the agenda.
Council, in executive session, we considered 2 economic development matters, one related to Project Blakely and one related to Project Homecoming. We've taken no action in regard to either one. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, we stand adjourned.